Welcome to the deep dive. So what we do here is take a stack of information, articles, notes, whatever, and basically pull out the key insights. The goal is to get you feeling well-informed pretty quickly without you having to do all the reading yourself, like
Yeah.
a shortcut to understanding something new.
And today, we're digging into some content from Boosting English Communication Skills with HappyTalk.in. It's specifically from a session for intermediate learners, folks looking to communicate better.
Yeah, but hold on, if you're thinking, oh, this is just for English learners, our mission here is really to pull out the core ideas about, good communication, understanding different cultures, practical ways to learn, things that are kind of hidden in this material.
Exactly. And these principles, they're useful for everyone, right?
Right? Totally. Presentations,
Mhm.
talking with colleagues, even just, having better chats. It applies everywhere.
And we're thinking about you, our listener, the learner, someone
Yeah.
who wants knowledge, wants it efficiently, but also thoroughly, likes those aha moments, different angles.
But definitely doesn't want to feel swamped with information.
Right. And that's what we're aiming for with this deep dive.
Okay, let's jump right in then. The material kicks off with this really inspiring story. I think it sets the stage perfectly for talking about communication. It's about the Spice of Unity Cooperative in Tiznit, Morocco.
Yeah, and what's interesting is the hurdle they faced at the start. These women, they were fantastic cooks, real culinary talent. But they were finding it tough to make a living just doing it individually.
Right. So their solution was actually pretty smart. They formed a cooking cooperative so they could pool everything, skills, resources.
And there was this one woman, Fatima, who was apparently really central to it all, a real driving force.
Yeah, the source has this great quote from her. If we share our skills and communicate openly, we can succeed. It just nails how her communication wasn't just talking, but like
Oh.
building belief, right? A shared goal.
Absolutely. It wasn't just the words, it was the conviction behind them,
Yeah.
communicating that belief authentically, that
Mhm.
skill, articulating the vision, connecting with people. That's what helped get past the doubts some women might have had.
Definitely. And once they got going, wow, they were busy. Selling at the local market, cooking together the source mentions like hanajin, couscous.
Carrera soup,
Yes,
almond pastry.
that
Sounds amazing.
Doesn't it? And they used the HappyTalk.in forum to invite locals, but they didn't just stop at selling food, did they?
No, they were really resourceful. They started running cooking classes for tourists and locals, which is such a great way to share their culture and skills directly. And they even started putting recipe videos online, reaching way beyond Tiznit. Oh, and Aisha's storytelling night, sharing family recipes and memories.
Yeah.
That's also such a lovely community thing.
It really does. And all this activity, the sharing, this communication, it led to real success. They actually opened their own cafe.
And the opening had 400 people attend.
Wow. Yeah. And now the co-op employs 15 women, supports their families. That's like a concrete impact, all starting from communication.
And it's not just economic. There's this quote from a customer, Layla. She said, "This cafe is more than food. It's love and connection." That really hits home, doesn't it? The community they built.
It really does. Makes you think how often we kind of overlook the power of just sharing a meal,
Yeah.
building those connections. Fatima herself said something like, communication built our cooperative. We listened, shared, and grew together. And I think that's a huge takeaway for you listening, just how vital that open communication is in any situation, really, for reaching goals together and, well, building something meaningful.
Absolutely. And a big part of communicating well, like Fatima and her group showed, is having the right words, right, to express your ideas, your passion. So let's look at some of the key vocabulary that came out of their story. The source pulls out 8 words.
Okay, let's break these down. First is cooperative. So the definition is a group working together for a common goal, often a business.
Yeah, like farmers forming one, or in this case, the women with their cooking cooperative. That idea of shared effort.
Exactly. Next, culinary. Relating to cooking or food.
Like culinary TV shows with these women sharing their culinary skills, it sort of highlights the art involved.
Then empowerment, which is about giving people confidence or power to succeed.
Right, like how education empowers people, or how this cooperative gave these women empowerment. It's about agency, taking control.
Next is authentic, meaning real, genuine, true.
The source mentions an authentic smile, or the women's food being authentic Moroccan. It suggests something real, trustworthy. That must have clicked with customers.
I bet. Okay, fifth word, blend, to mix things together smoothly.
Like blending fruit for a smoothie, or the women blending their different recipes, combining things to make something new, maybe something better.
Makes sense. Then vibrant, full of energy and life.
Think of a vibrant festival, or Tisnet being a vibrant village. It gives that feeling of energy, excitement, draws people in.
Right. Number 7 is connection, a bond or relationship with others.
Like feeling connected to friends, or how the cafe created connection. It's that social glue, really important for community.
Definitely. And the last one is vision, a clear idea or goal for the future.
Like someone having a vision to start a school, or Fatima having that vision for the cooperative. It's about direction, purpose. It guides you.
So as you're listening, maybe think about how these words, cooperation, culinary, empowerment, authentic, blend, vibrant, connection, vision, how they show up in your own life, your own communication, your goals.
Yeah, even if you're not learning English, these ideas are pretty fundamental, aren't they? How we connect and get things done.
Totally. Okay, so we've got the story, some key words. Now let's shift to how we talk about what other people said, which brings us to reported speech. The source explains this is a really useful tool for being clear.
Okay, reported speech is basically how you retell something someone else said. And often, there are some small grammar changes.
Right. The source gives a simple example. Someone says, I'm happy. Reported speech might be, she said that she was happy.
See that shift? The tense often moves back in time. So am becomes was.
And the source says will usually becomes would, and can becomes could. Like Fatima's original quote, we can succeed, because Fatima said that they could succeed.
It kind of signals you're reporting something said earlier.
And that little word that she said that she was happy, the source says it's often used, but it's actually optional.
Yeah. You could just say, she said she was happy. Both work.
The source gives more examples from the Spice of Unity story, too. Aisha says, I love cooking, reported. Aisha said that she loved cooking.
And when they said, we will open a cafe, it becomes, they said that they would open a cafe. It really grounds the grammar rule in their actual experience.
And there's a common mistake to look out for, right?
Yeah, not making that tense shift, like saying, she said that she is happy when the original statement was in the past, and it should be was happy. It can sometimes muddle the timeline a bit.
Right. The source even has a little practice bit. Direct quote is, I'm excited, he said.
And the reported version.
He said that he was excited.
Exactly. It seems like a small detail, grammar-wise, but it's pretty important for being accurate when you're relaying conversations. Avoids confusion.
Okay, so we've got the story, vocab, grammar. Now the source moves into some really practical communication tips. And these are definitely things you can use anywhere, not just if you're learning a language. First up, handling fast-paced conversations.
Ah, yes. This can be tough for lots of people, right? When things are moving fast, it's hard to jump in or even just keep track.
Totally. So tip 1 is use short responses. Things like, got it, or that's cool.
Right. It shows you're listening, you're engaged, but you don't need to form a whole complex sentence on the spot.
Keeps you in the game.
Yeah, exactly. It acknowledges the speaker without that pressure. Helps you stay present.
Okay, tip 2. Summarize to slow down, like saying, okay, so what you're saying is...
This is really useful. It gives you a second to process, plus it confirms your understanding correctly, kind of checks in with everyone.
And it naturally paces things a bit, as you said. Okay, tip 3. Pause strategically. Use little fillers like, or, let me think.
These little verbal placeholders buy you time, don't they?
Yeah, without making it seem like you're totally lost or haven't been listening.
Right. They signal you're processing, not just stuck. Keeps the flow going.
Okay, next set of tips is about using humor effectively. Humor's great for connecting, but as the source points out, you got to be a bit careful.
Yeah, it's powerful for building rapport, making things lighter, but it's so subjective and cultural too, so you need some awareness.
For sure. Tip 1 here is start simple. Use phrases everyone gets, like, it's a funny story, or maybe you're pulling my leg.
Good advice. Start with light, universally understood stuff. It's safer, helps you gauge the other person's vibe.
Makes sense. Tip 2, know your audience. This is huge. Avoid sensitive stuff. Maybe stick to everyday things, food, weather.
Yeah, context is everything. Understanding who you're talking to, what they might find funny or maybe not funny, it's crucial. Stick to neutral ground if you're unsure.
Definitely. Tip 3 is about practice timing, like pausing before the punchline. The source gives the example, I tried cooking, pause, it was a disaster.
Yeah, the delivery makes a huge difference, doesn't it? That little pause builds anticipation, makes it land better.
It really does. And the last humor tip, laugh along. If someone else tells a joke, even if it's just okay, smile, maybe say a good one.
Right. It shows you're engaged, you appreciate the effort, creates a more positive vibe, even if the joke itself wasn't, hilarious to you.
Good point. Okay, the source then has this section called a cultural corner, which I thought was cool. It links back to the Spice of Unity story, that idea of meals bringing people together. This bit focuses on cultural insights through food festivals.
Yeah, it frames food festivals not just as places to eat, but as real chances for cultural exchange and communication. The whole setting is usually pretty relaxed, informal.
Totally. The source mentions Thailand's Songkran Food Festival during their New Year, loads of street food. The casual vibe just encourages chatting.
And then there's Spain's La Tomatina, the tomato throwing thing.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, that's pretty active. But the source notes, people often share meals before or after. And there's this kind of playful communication, a shared crazy experience.
Right. Both examples show how food-focused events can just lower the barriers to talking to people. Even if your language skills aren't perfect, the shared experience is kind of its own communication.
Exactly. The source points out a few ways these festivals help communication. One, the relaxed setting makes it easier to practice chatting casually. Two, you pick up food words naturally, spicy, savory, stuff like that. And three, they often spark storytelling about food, family traditions, gives you little windows into other cultures.
It does make you think about food events closer to home, doesn't it? Farmers markets, street fairs,
Yeah.
even just a potluck. They're all places where conversation kind of naturally springs up around food.
Absolutely. That link between food and communication, it's everywhere. Sharing food is often deeply cultural, deeply social. Festivals just dial that up. Great places to practice communicating in a low-pressure way.
Okay, the source then wraps up with some bonus communication strategies, extra tools to kind of boost your effectiveness overall. First one, adapting to formal versus informal settings.
Ah, yeah, really important. You wouldn't talk the same way in a job interview as you would with your friends, right?
Hopefully not. The source calls it code switching, basically, changing your style to fit the situation. It gives examples, formal stuff like, could you please clarify, or I appreciate your input.
Versus informal things like cool or no worries.
Right. And it says to pay attention to cues, tone, body language, the general vibe to figure out what's appropriate.
Good advice. Okay, next bonus strategy, mindfulness for clear communication. Now, mindfulness, how does that connect to talking?
Well, in this context, it's about being fully present, focused when you're speaking, but also really listening. And apparently that focus can actually help reduce nervousness and make you clearer.
Okay, that makes sense. So practical tips.
Things like taking a breath before you speak, really tuning in to the other person, maybe pausing for a second to gather your thoughts instead of rushing. Simple stuff, but it leads to more intentional communication.
Yeah, being present means you're less likely to be worrying about what to say next, so you can actually listen better and respond more thoughtfully. A mindful approach. Interesting.
Third bonus tip, pronunciation for impact. Now, this seems obvious for language learners, but clear pronunciation helps everyone, right? Makes you more effective.
Definitely. It's not just about being understood. It also boosts your confidence. When you know people get what you're saying, you feel more sure of yourself.
The source mentions stressing the right syllable, like authentic or cooperative, and practicing intonation, that rise and fall of your voice, like when you ask a question, really?
And imitating native speakers can help you get that natural rhythm. Even small tweaks in pronunciation can make a big difference in how clear and confident you sound.
Good point. And the final bonus strategy is about building rapport. What's rapport exactly in this context?
It's essentially creating that feeling of trust, connection, understanding with whoever you're talking to. Makes the interaction feel more comfortable, more open.
Okay, so how do you do that? The source has tips like mirroring the other person's style, a bit, not mimicking, but matching energy maybe.
Yeah, or using their name occasionally if it feels natural. Showing real interest, asking follow-up questions like, oh, tell me more about that.
And sharing little relatable stories like, oh yeah, I burned dinner once too. Finding that common ground, making it personal.
Exactly. These small things can really shift the dynamic, make communication more positive, more effective. It's about making the other person feel, seen and heard.
So wrapping up this deep dive, we've covered quite a bit. Started with that great Spice of Unity story. Saw how communication was just fundamental for them.
Then the vocabulary, those 8 keywords.
Right. And we looked at reported speech, getting that right, and then all those practical tips.
Handling fast chats,
Yeah.
using humor, the food festivals idea.
And the bonus strategies. Adapting your style, mindfulness, pronunciation, building rapport.
And it's worth saying again, while the source was about English learning. These principles we've talked about, they're universal.
Totally. Clear speaking, active listening, cultural awareness, building connections that stuff matters in any language, any situation.
Absolutely.
So maybe a final thought for you listening. Pick one or two strategies we discussed today, just one or two, and think about consciously trying them out in your next conversation, whatever that might be. Because effective communication, maybe it's a bit like that amazing food from the Spice of Unity. It's about knowing your ingredients, your words, your tone, how you listen, and figuring out how to blend them together just right to create something, really worthwhile.